So here we begin part 2 with the famous idol scene. This scene has been parodied many times. It's one of those scenes that even if you never watched Indiana Jones before, you just know it's from this movie. I like this shot here when you see the dirt running through Indy's fingers. This shot tells us that he's making a big mistake. John Williams, of course one of the masters of film music, has the suspense rising with some strings. So then this temple's ancient Peruvian security system still works perfectly and Indy has to make a run for it. Now, I'm going to stop here and introduce you to something called Chekhov's gun. Chekhov's gun is one of those funny named principles like Schrodinger's cat or whatever. Anton Chekhov was a Russian playwright and author who once said this: "Remove everything that has no relevance to the story. If you say in the first chapter that there is a rifle hanging on the wall, in the second or third chapter it absolutely must go off. If it's not going to be fired, it shouldn't be hanging there." In other words, everything in the story has to have a purpose, whether it's in a book, a movie, a play, or even in a video game. These traps that Indy and Satipo crossed weren't just traps for cheap thrills. They served purposes. Firstly, they served to reveal Satipo's character, as I mentioned in the first video. Second, they come into play again when Indy and Satipo have to run away. Indy has to say "fuck it" and run across the booby-trapped floor, which is an ironic nod to how earlier he had to walk across carefully. The pit serves to reveal Satipo's treacherous nature. This is also a pretty famous scene where he actually makes it across the pit on his own, but then refuses to give Indy the whip so he can have the idol for himself. And finally, the booby trap with the lights serve as Satipo's ultimate demise. Only a few minutes earlier he had been screaming in terror at this trap. Now he's actually part of it. Of course, this entire temple sequence wouldn't be complete without one final surprise: the giant bowling ball. This is another sort of rule I like to follow. I don't really have a name for it. Let's actually call it something right now. Let me call it the fourth surprise. See, the audience had been set with these 3 traps, so naturally they think, okay, Indy is fine from here on out. But nope! Nope, 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 run, you little shit! So Indy finally makes it out of the temple and we are introduced to the main villain of the movie, and Indy's rival, Belloc. Let's pause here and just look at this. Belloc is a smug bastard. He serves as the complete opposite of Indy, which is really what a great villain and rival is supposed to be. Belloc hardly had to do shit to get the idol. All he did was talk to the natives and bring a fucking army of them over to take the idol. He also killed one of Indy's guides from earlier. This is ironic because earlier we were okay with Indy whipping the shit out of him when he tried to shoot from behind, but Belloc takes it one step further. Suddenly we think, oh god, that's horrible. I can go on and on with what Belloc and Indy represent. It's clear that Indy is a Pulp Fiction character, and Pulp Fiction was a purely American invention. Sensational adventure and action. Indy is literally America in this scene. There's a statement to be said in how he got the idol. Through precarious means. He faced the dangers head-on but had bad relations with foreigners. Belloc, meanwhile, is a Frenchman. He's actually diplomatic in talking to the natives to get the idol. So blah blah blah, Indy runs away, losing the idol to Belloc. Belloc does his evil laugh. And then when I was a kid, I always giggled at this scene with the natives because I was like, but their butts are showing. Look at their butts. Indy jumps into the water to get into his friend's plane, and for some reason this guy always reminds me of a young Greg Kinnear. I kept thinking that, and it's obviously not, but it always bothers me when I get to this part. I'm always like, that has to be Greg Kinnear, but it's not. But he looks like him. Let's skip ahead here to one very important thing. Indy returns to his school to teach, and 2 government agents arrive to ask him some questions. They intercepted Nazi telegrams relating to an old professor of Indy's, Abner Ravenwood. So they ask Indy if he knows any more about this. The Nazi telegrams mention the Staff of Ra and the Ark of the Covenant. This is a great way to introduce the magical artifact that our protagonist ends up looking for. Here we have an engaging conversation that starts out as an issue of national security and then turns into a wider discussion about an ancient artifact that will make the audience think, I wonder what that is. I wonder what it looks like. Indy even draws the Staff of Ra on a chalkboard, explaining how it's supposed to help you locate the Ark of the Covenant. Then Indy shows everybody a picture of the Ark in the Bible. It's a somewhat unsettling image of people being tormented by the Ark. John Williams' motif for the Ark is first heard in this moment as a low tune. Fun fact though, Marcus Brody here says that the Bible mentions the Ark having the power to move mountains and bring down entire armies and some shit like that. In reality, none of that is ever mentioned in the Bible. The most the Ark did was cause a plague when the Philistines stole it. The Ark was no more than a weird cursed trinket. The Philistines then got so freaked out by these plagues and other weird shit that happened that they returned it to the Israelites. The Ark is mentioned like only a handful of times in the entire Old Testament. This is how you introduce a major plot point like this, by showing rather than telling. Let me show you a horrible example from a crappy adventure movie called Fool's Gold. Fool's Gold opens up with text over Caribbean waters rambling about, I don't even know, I don't care, it's dumb. This is how they really tried to get the audience to care about what Matthew McConaughey's character wanted to find. But it's the wrong medium. Ugh! You don't want to do this in a movie. This is not how you try to get the audience interested. Like, what? Reading? This isn't a book, this is a movie. Show me something. The audience isn't going to remember all this info once it disappears. I read all this, and all I hear in my head is blah, 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 something history. And this isn't a question about attention span. It's a question about how to use acting and screenwriting to walk you through a story rather than throwing information at you. Oh god, this is disgusting. I can't even. Let's go back to Raiders. Go back to Raiders. Go quickly before my eyes fucking bleed and my ears just fucking. Now, I'm not saying that every adventure movie needs to be like Raiders of the Lost Ark. I'm just saying that you need to engage the audience in actual acting and action to get them into the story. In Raiders, we started out with this temple scene, and it was awesome. In Fool's Gold, we have this shit. Don't do this shit to people. If I wanted to read about the Queen's dowry, I'd open up a fucking history book. Actually, this book here is a really good book. I recommend it to history buffs. Yeah, go read it.